Okay, thanks, Ruth. So look, once again, thanks very much for everybody to come along this evening. I suppose we'll try and get everybody out within the hour if possible. But obviously we'll give the meeting as much time as it requires. So look, I want to welcome obviously all the elected representatives that are here this evening, and Superintendent Declan O'Sullivan and your team. Thank you for coming along this evening. And Declan, at any stage, if you'd like to step in and chair these meetings, I've no problem stepping down, so just put your hand up. So I suppose I also want to welcome obviously the chairs of the community safety forums, and I want to thank you all for being here. I suppose just to bear in mind, everybody, this is live streamed, and also media have access to this channel, so just to bear that in mind as we're progressing through the meeting. And as mentioned before, it would be really helpful if everybody who is not speaking could go on mute, and if you have a question you can raise your hand and I'll call people in. So I suppose just to start the night off, what I'd like to do is maybe hand over to Martha Halbert on the community side in Cork City Council to make her presentation, and then I might move to Declan and your team to present, and then we might take all the questions at the end if that's okay.
Yep, no problem, Adrian. Actually, you have a fairly concise list to get through this evening, and so I'll just start off quickly. One of the roads, it's issue concerning Blarney Village Bypass Road around Convent Road and Sunbury, saying that the road from the city direction heading towards Tower, passing the Common on the right and houses on the left, is blind and dangerous and close to entrances and exit of same, and just saying that it's really difficult for residents to back out onto the road. So our road engineers and infrastructure team came back with a really comprehensive response on this, and have obviously given it quite a bit of attention. So it's a very busy road, and there is a low stone wall just before the traffic lights. So there's a path behind the wall leading down to the square, and beyond the traffic lights there are entrances to dwellings directly onto the road, so the visibility is blocked by the wall. But there was some concern that the wall possibly had a retaining element. So any revisions to that wall would require a design and road safety audit. So what they have suggested is that this would probably be a minor scheme, possibly a low cost safety scheme, and would need to be dealt by traffic or infrastructure development. So between infrastructure and roads, both those teams are going to look into this and see could it be considered for that low cost safety scheme, and just determine where it would lie on a priority list. So that is being addressed. My next query is around rubbish and litter in the Fairfield and Fairhill, grass needing to be cut in Fairfield Meadows, and a housing query, a specific housing query, which I forwarded on to housing colleagues. Just in terms of rubbish removal and grass mowing in the Fairhill, Fairfield area, it's in a cyclical maintenance programme, and other times as required. So the public areas in the Fairfield Meadows are not taken in charge of City Council, and so they're actually the responsibility of the developer. However, given that we have been, the community team have been in contact with Cork City Partnership, who actually raised this query over the last few months as a once-off ops priority, we're actually going to ensure that a contractor maintains the Fairfield Meadows area just now, just because we know that over the summer it's become problematic. But again, this will come back to where areas are not taken in charge of the City Council. It's just not possible on an ongoing basis to maintain those in the same way that other areas may be seen to be maintained. Whereas then Fairfield Lawn is a housing development built by City Council's housing directorate, so they are responsible for the maintenance of that, so that will be tended to. Traffic query just around speeding cars on the Upper Fairhill Road. That's enforcement of those speed limits is obviously a matter for An Garda Síochána, so we'll be forwarding the details of that to our colleagues in An Garda Síochána. And then there was a query around the junction of Bakers Road. So parked cars belonging to residents in that area are being damaged, and there was a query around possibly installation of traffic lights at the top of Colmkill Road. So the response there is that all new traffic signal installations will be reviewed in the context of the Cork Metropolitan Area Transport Strategy, as well as the delivery of Bus Connects and the promotion of sustainable modes. So currently there are no plans to install traffic signals at this location, but the request will be forwarded to Design and Infrastructure as a request to be reviewed in the context of the above schemes. So actually, Adrian, that's actually all from the queries that were submitted. As I mentioned to you earlier, there was a marked decrease in the number of submissions for the Safety Forum this time around. I'd like to think that's because everything is ticking along smoothly, but I think in reality, there's probably a little bit of fatigue in terms of engaging with these kind of forums online. So we really appreciate the work of our Community Safety Forum chairs locally, who obviously are probably fielding a lot of requests and feedback from local residents. And, you know, we always welcome contact from our safety forums and the community team. So that's all for me now. Thanks.
That's great. Thanks, Martha. And I suppose, look, if there are any other queries maybe that are presented tonight, as per the last meeting, we'll take that back to the teams internally, and we'll make sure that we keep the momentum going in between the Community Safety Forum. So it's not just you have to wait until the next Community Safety Forum comes up. So Declan, I'd like to hand over to you and your team there now.
Okay, thanks, Adrian. And again, thanks to the council for hosting the meeting. And again, I've seen the drop off in the amount of submissions since last May for this meeting. And again, I'd be hoping that maybe that's a signal that we're doing things better, or we're doing a lot of things right. But we'll go through the issues as they have them anyway. I just want to introduce you to my team that are on here tonight. That's Inspector Brian O'Donovan from Gronabroher, Inspector Sean McCarthy is in Mayfield, Sergeant Mark Keating from Glanmire, Sergeant David Noonan from Mayfield, Sergeant Terry Murphy, Watercourse Road, Sergeant Brendan Kelly here in Gronabroher, and Sergeant Mark Dempsey from Blarney. And again, I'm going to stick to the same format as last May. Each of the 5 sergeants going to speak about their particular areas, and what we'll do is we'll touch on the queries that were raised last May and just give you a bit of an up-to-date on what we've done since then, and also the fresh ones that have come in for this meeting. I suppose just as an overview, and again for people that mightn't have been on the last meeting, since the 1st of January, Ballincollig is no longer under the policing of the north side, and basically the north side is being policed in totality from north of the river, from Blarney across to Glanmire and Gronabroher, Watercourse Road and Mayfield. And I suppose in addition to that, we've made improvements over the year in relation to radio channels, that all the on the north side are now on the same radio channel, as opposed to when there was 2 districts there in the past, and that has huge benefits for us, where we're all talking to each other on the north side. There's a lot of crossover going on in relation to calls, and I suppose traditional Garda boundaries that were on the north side are no longer there, so that's an improvement, you know. Again, just for people that might know, we have 2 24-hour stations on the north side, that's Gronabroher and Mayfield, and then the 4 other stations, which the lads will be talking to you about, are Blarney, Watercourse Road, Carrignavar and Glanmire. I suppose just to touch on some of the issues that were raised in relation to community policing, we at the moment have 1 sergeant and 13 guards full-time on community policing. What we've done since the economy has kind of reopened there, since particularly September, we've put additional members, particularly probationer Gardaí, that have come to the city, and the north side has got a sizable amount of probationers over the last few years. We've put them into designated areas alongside community policing to assist them, and that's paying dividends at the moment. And we've started going back into the schools since September, and we're also we started up a few face-to-face residents meetings again since September, and also back into some of the sports clubs and some of the GA clubs around the north side. So hopefully we're trying to keep that going over the winter. Some of the sports clubs are winding down, in particular maybe the GA and that, but we'll get back into them again in the spring. In relation to, I think it was Deputy Gould raised an issue in relation to Operation Tombola and fireworks. We're not seeing a huge problem here in relation to fireworks. We've had some reports of them in the Mayfield, Gronabroher areas in the recent few days, but it's not a huge issue for us at the moment, but we're constantly monitoring it. And particularly up to this weekend, huge plan in place for this weekend for the Jazz Festival, which, you know, is kind of based out of McCurtain Street, and all the pubs are open until 2:30 a.m. on Friday night, Saturday night and Sunday night throughout the city and the district court area of Cork City. So we're mindful of that, and we have a policing response in place for that, both on the north side and the city centre, and in the south of the city as well. So look, that's just a brief overview of where we're at. While what I'll do is I'll call Sergeant Brendan Kelly first from Gronabroher. He'll be followed by Sergeant Terry Murphy, Watercourse Road, then Sergeant Noonan from Mayfield, Sergeant Dempsey from Blarney, and then finally Sergeant Mark Keating from Glanmire to give you an overview of those areas. Okay, and I'll take questions at the end then. Okay, thanks, Adrian.
Okay, hi all. Sergeant Brendan Kelly in Gronabroher. Just first of all, I suppose the first issue we were handed there was in relation to the ongoing issue of scramblers. This is concerned really by residents in the Spriggs Road area, Sun Valley Drive, 52 Steps, and the Inishannon Road. Now, there's a coupling there with that is the antisocial behaviour maybe in that area that they're experiencing. Now, while we've received a number of complaints, I'd say in that area from residents in that area, the problem is a bit infrequent and not an everyday issue we find. So it's difficult there to maybe detect it at times, especially the scramblers. Now, however, the area is and has been getting more high-vis attention by beat members and mobile patrols through proactive patrols. And because of these, a number of motorcycles have been seized in that immediate area in the last number of months, especially over the summer and since, which hopefully will help the issue. Now, as we know, the issue of scramblers is now part of a national media campaign, I'd say, encouraging parents to maybe not to buy these machines for their children, especially over the Christmas period. And I think our community policing members here have been very proactive in bringing that message in their talks to schools, but also they've also been proactive in calling to the homes of those identified as owners and users of these scramblers, and bringing the message of the dangers of using these in the public places. And we're hoping that these maybe as rather than trying to apprehend these, I suppose through education, maybe that we can help in rectifying the issue. We'd be pleased to say that as a part of an update, the issue that was in National Marine in relation to scramblers that was raised in the last meeting, this has seen an obvious improvement through proactive patrols and that. So we're hoping that maybe through the same mechanisms and checkpoints in that area, in the Sun Valley Drive area, that we can maybe help to tackle that area, tackle the issue. Also, I suppose we believe this legislation is being maybe coming before the dial, maybe the end of the year, in relation to the scramblers issue, which will hopefully help to strengthen our hand in dealing with the matter. So I suppose as a separate point, as the economy is opening, our beat members will be patrolling the Blarney Street, Shandon Street, and all those areas that I suppose we'll see an active, a more active presence of people, and we will hopefully, we'll be seen at a more high visibility area. So from Gronabroher, that's as much as I have for tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, Brendan.
Hello everyone, Terry Murphy is my name. I'm the Sergeant in charge of Watercourse Road, Blackpool Station, that area. Just to go over the list of issues that were raised the last time around. My main issue the last time around was antisocial behaviour in Ballyvolane, Dublin Hill, Kinvara, all kind of the Crested Dublin area. That had been an ongoing problem for a number of years, and indeed it still is. Over the summer, things have gotten a lot better. We have had the Divisional Public Order Unit up there on weekends. We have put a lot of resources into it. We have a lot of the ringleaders before the courts. We have people before both the District and Circuit Court. And from speaking to residents there, I'm quite happy there is an improvement. It is still getting lots of attention. And again, I'd urge people to still continue reporting everything. The next area that was brought up the last time was Farnree area. Again, most of Farnree has matured a lot over the last few years, but there are a couple of problems there. It is receiving attention. Since Ballincollig left the Gronabroher district, Watercourse Road and Gronabroher stations are a lot more joined up. It's not uncommon to see Ground Brower members on the beat in Blackpool and vice versa. So we're getting a lot more cooperation, and we're sharing our problems. Dumping came up the last time around in and around Spring Lane and other locations. We continue to do operations with City Council. We have done a couple of covert kind of sting operations, and there is a big appetite to continue these going. Speeding came up the last time on Glen Heights Road, one location in particular. That has gone to the Divisional Roads Policing Unit, and they have operated speed checkpoints visibly in that area. The Glen Park came up the last time, and we have increased mountain bike patrols there. Wellington Road, the flat of the city, McCurtain Street, there's a lot of issues there with drug abuse and all that goes with it. The City Centre Policing Unit is very active there. They have huge progress made there, and again, I'm happy there's a much more visible presence there on a daily basis. That's pretty much it for Watercourse Road. Again, as things are reopening, I'm encouraging people again to be involved with the community guards and be involved with their residents associations and keep feeding information and complaints into us. Thanks.
Thanks, Terry.
Good evening, everyone. Sergeant Dave Noonan, Mayfield Garda Station. Just following on from the last meeting in respect of the Mayfield sub-district, I suppose there was three common themes arose in the issues that were highlighted at the last safety fora, and they focused around antisocial behaviour, issues with scramblers, and issues with substance abuse and drug dealing, in particular parts of Mayfield sub-district. So over the summer months, following the meeting, I suppose one of the very first things we done was that we got our community guards to get out and start engaging with the youth in the school environments, speaking to them about the issues of antisocial behaviour, the effects it has on communities. In some circumstances where community Gardaí and Gardaí were on patrol, they had occasion to call to the parents of particular individuals who were causing problems in communities and spoke with their parents in respect of these issues. It seems to have the desired chill effect. There was also the targeted policing of hotspot locations that were identified at the last fora, such as Ashmount, Dunnard, the housing estates there running along the Northring Road, Banduff Road, Brookvale, in particular. Those areas were all subjected to targeted policing over the summer by units at Mayfield Garda Station, community policing, and the Regional Public Order Unit, from an overt perspective, and from the covert point of view, then we had our drugs units and our detective branch units also patrolling the area. And that had the desired effect in reducing the problematic issues in communities. I suppose scramblers kind of fed into the antisocial behaviour to a certain extent. So some families in the locality were spoken to. Again, in terms of scramblers, we would urge people to contact us via the 999 line, because we have plenty of powers to deal with those if they're found in a public place. But the trick is to catch them out in a public place where we have powers to seize the scramblers and so on. And finally then, just in respect of the abuse of controlled substances and drug dealing, over the summer months, our local drugs units, which were discussed by Superintendent O'Sullivan at the previous forum meeting, the re-establishment of those units have proven to be very successful. Certainly within Mayfield, they have had significant success in the detection of breaches of the Misuse of Drugs Act. And I can confirm that all of those are currently under investigation and will find their way into the courts in due course. Outside of that, I have nothing else to report from Mayfield Sub-District. Thank you.
Thanks, David. So it's Brian, Mark and Sean there. So Brian, do you want to come in?
Thanks, Superintendent O'Sullivan. I wasn't on the forum the last time. Just introduced myself. Mark Dempsey is my name, Sergeant in charge of Blarney Garda Station. I've been there for the past 3.5 years. Just a quick overview for people who wouldn't know the Blarney area that well. We cover a large geographical area: Tower, Clero, Kerry Pike, Clogheen, out as far as Cork, Granagh, Ratduff, Whitechurch, Cartnavar. And we also encompass a big mix of urban, rural, agricultural, farming and business areas. And obviously we have two of the most frequently visited tourist attractions in the country, with Blarney Castle and Blarney Woollen Mills. So it's a bit of a mix there. So just to get into the safety aspect, policing aspect, in terms of antisocial behaviour, again, we have an issue with scramblers and quads at the moment. We're liaising with local community leaders in relation to trying to deal with this matter. We do try to respond very quickly to incidents that occur, and even this evening now, before I come over to join in the forum, my car in Blarney intercepted a scrambler coming out of Riverview, but unfortunately they know they're at runs, they're able to escape quickly. But again, we'll do our best, and if we do intercept them, we'll seize these vehicles, and obviously we'll keep a close eye on what legislation comes through in the coming weeks. Like most areas over the past 18 months, but I suppose over the summer as well, we've had antisocial issues, especially in the square in Blarney. But it's also stretched out to groups going out as far as Cartnavar. And like my colleagues, I've utilised the Divisional Public Order Unit on occasions, which have a very desirable effect. One issue we've had as well is antisocial behaviour on buses, in particular the 215 bus route, which travels the length of the city from Mahon Point through the city centre and over to Blarney Tower and ends in Clero. I've liaised with the bus inspectors in Capwell, and we've introduced a robust policy of having zero tolerance to any antisocial behaviour, any threats or assaults on drivers. And to that effect, we regularly travel the bus route in uniform, in particular from Blarney to Tower. And we're currently investigating one assault on a bus driver recently, and that's currently going through the courts. In relation to crime in the area, thankfully, serious crime is reasonably low. However, we have had a spike in thefts from cars in the past number of weeks. We have one suspect arrested for that. That's currently under investigation. But I would ask, and this has gone out through social media channels, I'd ask that members of the public do take care when locking their vehicles at night and ensure that their vehicles are fully locked. I think in 99% of the vehicles that were that suspects got into in the past few weeks, most of those vehicles were actually unlocked. But again, from a serious point of view, burglaries, robberies, thankfully they're quite low in the area. One issue of note that has been high on my agenda for the past 6 months or so is the issue of road bowlers, in particular in the areas of Lower Cleans, Temple Michael and Whitechurch. There unfortunately is a cohort of unaffiliated members who will do their own thing in terms of road bowling. And when I say unaffiliated members, they're not affiliated with Bowl Come On na Héireann. In that respect, I've liaised directly with the chairman of Bowl Come On na Héireann, and in particular to the local branch honorary secretary. And we're doing our best to deal with the issue. I'm constantly liaising with the local residents. And in that regard, we do our best to disrupt the behaviour of the groups that don't cooperate with us and who tend to threaten the local residents. The other issue that I'd like to touch on is the station opening times in Blarney for the past, well, I suppose since the start of the pandemic. I haven't been able to offer regular opening times for the stations. But thanks to Superintendent O'Sullivan, who was able to give me extra resources, I'm now able to open the station on a regular basis. And I intend advertising those hours and days on a rolling 4-week roster period going forward. And also just to finally touch on our community policing personnel, again, as my colleagues have touched on, we're back face-to-face meetings with groups, community groups, sporting groups. School visits have also started, which is very promising, which is obviously great to get the word out to young people about misuse of drugs and alcohol, etc. I've also taken a keen interest in speaking to local school principals regarding safety at school drop-off and collection times, and that's been well received. So yeah, that's about it from the Blarney viewpoint at the moment. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Mark, and welcome to the Community Safety Forum. And look, as always, you know, if there's any communications that needs to be pushed out by An Garda Síochána, please feel free to share it with us as well in Cork City Council, and we'll push it out through our own channels as well. So is it Brian or Sean next? No. Is that it from your team, Declan?
Sorry, Mark there, Mark Keating, you're on mute there. Mark, if you could go ahead.
Is it Terence there? Seems to be speaking as well, maybe.
Oh, it's Terence who's, yeah, okay. Terence, you're on mute if you can hear us.
That's Terry Murphy's one there. Perhaps if Mark Keating is speaking at the moment, you're still on mute there, Mark. I think you're with Terry there. You're still on mute, Mark. We're not receiving you there.
I can't see him on my screen here. So is there anybody else for an update, Sean, or if he wants to come back in a while?
Sorry, no, Mark seems to be talking there. Mark Keating. If there's anyone,
I can't see him on my screen for some reason.
Yeah, he's on the screen, but he's on mute, Mark Keating. If you could unmute yourself there, we're not receiving you at all.
Can I be heard okay, yeah?
I can hear you now, Mark. If you go ahead, do your report from Glanmire. That starts Mark.
So antisocial behaviour, the main areas in Glanmire to come to the attention of the Gardaí over the summer months was John O'Callaghan Park and the surrounding woodlands, Dooley's Lane, Hazelwood around the shopping centre, the basketball courts and the wooded area nearby. And in Little Island, it would be around Leaside football pitches generally in the nearby estates. So to deal with that, we increased mobile patrols. We also carried out some uniform and plainclothes patrols in the areas. This resulted in some arrests, prosecutions, a large number of fixed charge penalty notices for COVID offences, quite a few JLO juvenile cautions, and a significant number of behaviour orders were issued. We engaged with the young people that were causing these problems, and we met with a lot of them and their parents and updated them on the issues being caused by their presence in the area. And I'm satisfied that since COVID restrictions eased and schools and colleges have returned, coupled with those proactive policing measures, then these problems have improved in those areas and we continue to monitor it. Another issue for residents in the Glanmire area would be speeding, particularly around Upper Glanmire, Knockraha, Brook Lodge East, Ballinglana, Barnavara Hill and Glounthaune. I know that the Knockraha residents are currently liaising with the council to put some traffic calming measures in place. Other areas already have some traffic calming measures in place, and I know the Cork City Council will be reducing the speed limits in some of these areas to 30 kilometres per hour. Where we received persistent complaints in relation to speeding, I have requested increased speed checks in those areas from the Cork City Traffic Unit. And just to touch on the opening hours for Glanmire, as similar to my colleague from Blarney, the opening hours of the station gladly were open most days, and we'll endeavour to publish the opening hours through local social media accounts where we can. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So have we anybody else? Sean or
That's it, Adrian, from the north side. If you want to take questions now or whatever.
Perfect. Perfect. That's great. And thank you all for the detailed reports there. It's really useful. There's somebody probably not on mute there, so if I could just ask you to go on mute, and I'll just open it up there to any questions. And if you just want to raise your hand there, and I'll call people in. So Damien Boylan, Councillor Boylan, are you there?
I am. Adrian, thanks very much. Yeah, I suppose a couple of things, lads, and you've hit on most of them. The scrabbers and the quads are the issue, and we know that hopefully the what's been passed today in the Oireachtas will get sorted out before Christmas and give you the powers you need to sort them out. And I suppose I've liaised with everybody, I suppose, between Graw and Blarney as regards to what's been going on in Blarney and what's also been going on in Lower Cleans. And I appreciate the work you've done because you've worked very hard. And I say this especially to Mark and Brendan. I know the amount of effort you've put in to try and get this solved, so we really do appreciate it, okay, as a community. speeding, I suppose, is the other one. My inbox is filled with, I don't know, speeding, it seems to be at epidemic levels. And I don't know what the story is with people. We look at, and Mark's well aware of them because myself and Mark would talk on a regular basis, but places like Station Road and Blarney Millstream Road, Tower Road, Ely's Bridge, around there, whatever it is, since we came back from lockdown, just everybody's after getting a heavy right foot. It's just bonkers. I know, again, the Gardaí can't be everywhere. So if we can get that message out that people need to take some responsibility for their own driving, how we do it as an interagency, I don't know. But if we could do that, please. I suppose the next thing I've done is just thanks to Brendan for what he's doing below in Nash's and in Lower Cleans. It is appreciated and it is noted. It's hard to think that Mark is in Blarney 3.5 years since Dave Noonan ran away from us. I don't know what we did to you, Dave, but anyway, we don't take it personally. We've all moved on. The relationship between Mark Dempsey, Shawnee, and the community we have out here is incredible. If you could get that modelled in every town in Ireland, you'd be on a complete winner. And maybe you have, and maybe it's just because it's my town, but just that relationship, that openness that we have, and especially now, and thanks for giving us cons so that our station is open 5 days a week. Again, much appreciated. I know that as a Dunamore man, he's happier to be closer to Dunamore than he is to be in Mayfield. So, and we had that discussion. But look, in lots of ways, it's all good. As I said, the cooperation is incredible, and the amount of work you put in is noted. There's a few bits and pieces, but look, to be fair, I think between Mark and Sean and the public reps, etc., out here, we know everything that's going on, and between the lot of us, we're trying to work it out. So once more, thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor. And we've 3 more hands up, so I might actually invite those people to ask their questions and we can answer them all then together at the one time. So, Ger Maloney, you're next up there.
Hi, how are you? I'm in Glamira. Yeah.
Ger, you're breaking up on us there. I don't know if it's just me or other people finding it difficult to. Okay, I think Ger has just left the meeting, so she'll probably log back in. Councillor John Maher, I might go to you while we're just waiting for her to come back in.
Thanks, Adrian. Just maybe, in fairness to the various stations, they all hitting it to most of the issues. Just one, I suppose, the things definitely have quietened down when Terry was on about Kinvara. We have noticed notable improvements there, and the same with David up in Mayfield or Ashmount down into Upper Load of Beg. So I hope it's a bit of a cop on and a bit of presence as well. Let's come together just to make sure that I suppose that stopped, and there has been a notable improvement, so it is appreciated. Just on a personal level, and some of you were there back in this summer, a lady went missing in Mayfield, and I think that was the guards and the emergency services at their best. Now, thankfully, the lady in particular was found, but it just showed all of you and your teams and the other emergency services at their best, and it really was a good morning to be a part of, because it was a good story about it. And again, I just know from being around in the area, people were happy about that. And maybe if somebody could just update us on Blackpool and just with the shooting over the weekend. Again, just for our own sakes, a lot of calls come our way again, and I suppose if we're equipped with some of the information that we can just go back, and kind of maybe stop the fears and maybe, just work with people, and, the rumours don't get out there then. And I suppose just to back that up then is that if we can get back to the physical meetings, because there's a lot of people that Zoom isn't for them, or, the online isn't for them. And I think sometimes, it's important that people get to be heard, and we know, it yourselves, now that you're back out meeting with people. I think that if we can do that again I know even myself and my own team, we've been out canvassing now for the last 6-8 weeks, and you see the benefit. People want to engage. and the community forum gave that opportunity as well. So if we could have the next one of these in person, and we'll stick by the guidelines and all that, but it would be welcome. But thanks many guys. Cheers.
Thanks, Councillor. I'll take Dave Barry, you're next, and then we might answer those questions, and then I'll come to Councillor Kenneth O'Flynn.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. My name is Dave Barry. I'm a resident here in Seminary Walk in Farranree. I suppose my questions are probably going directly to the guards based in Watercourse Road in Granabraher. I suppose in the past 2 weeks, I've seen a massive increase in antisocial behaviour in the area. In particular, in the last week, on my stretch road alone, which is facing directly onto Cushing Road. I'm based in the terrace of houses across from that. In the last week, we've had massive incidences with kids with fireworks, with I suppose teenagers as well, setting them off around the place. And I presume you've received phone calls and things like that in relation to it. I suppose the main reason why I'm flagging it, I had been in contact with a local councillor who told me to maybe that this might be the best place to speak directly in relation to it and raise my concerns as a resident here. I'm renting privately. I've been here since February of this year and never had any issues. Unfortunately, in the past week and a half, I've seen, like I said, a massive increase in antisocial behaviour, things like burning of rubbish, and I suppose the standard in the run-up to Halloween, egging of houses and the fireworks. I'm just wondering, is there going to be, I suppose, an increase in patrols based in that area? Yeah, it'd be fantastic if you could give me some feedback in relation to that. I suppose myself and a number of other residents based on the terrace here are actually, I suppose we're quite concerned, especially in the run up to this weekend being the bank holiday weekend, and the following week I think is the midterm as well. So that's great. Thanks very much for giving me your time.
Thanks, Dave. So I might just pass back there to Garda Síochána to take those queries. Councillor Boylan, you were first. Mark, is that you in your area?
Do you want me to jump in there? Will I take those answers there, Adrian?
Yeah, whoever, jump in whatever order. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll start there with just the comments of Damien Boylan there, and just thank you for the kind words. And again, we're conscious that the station wasn't open for a considerable period, and we were conscious to try and get it open. And I think Mark has found a mechanism, published the opening hours on a weekly, 4-weekly basis, and we've given a commitment then to honour whatever we publish. We will honour. That might change from a week basis, but once it goes out on local social media, we will honour those opening hours. We'll be able to plan ahead with whoever's on annual leave or stuff like that. And again, if there's issues in relation to speeding, any particular issues, keep feeding them in locally. That goes for all the areas, not just Blarney. Keep feeding them in. We can adjust checkpoints. We can put checkpoints into any areas, any time of the day or night that we want. We'd like to be able to back it up at times with complaints from people that we will get complaints about specific areas. So the more you feed into us, and these meetings are a benefit from us as well, because we're taking notes here, all the sergeants, and whatever issues are being raised, we will act upon them before the next meeting, and that's I think that's the purpose of these meetings. So that's a benefit. In relation to John Marr, just again, thanks for the kind words in relation to that missing person incident. I know Inspector Sean McCarthy was on the ground that morning there, and there was a successful outcome to it, and it's not often you get a good news story like that. And yes, there was a lot of agencies there, and we've spoken to them ourselves afterwards, thanking them for their input, and everything just worked well on the morning. In relation to the Blackpool shooting, I can't obviously discuss it in great detail. What I can tell you is all of us here tonight and the detectives working on the north side are all aware of the shooting. We're aware of the person that was the target of the shooting, and I suppose the best way to put it is we have a very targeted reply in relation to that investigation. It is very live, it is very current. there is no need for people on the periphery of Blackpool or living in that Blackpool area nearby to be anyway concerned about it. We're satisfied it wasn't random. And that's as much as I'm going to say on it. It's a very live and active investigation. We work very closely with the detectives here on the north side and the detective inspector and detective superintendent. So I won't say any more about that particular instance, but we're well aware of it. We'll increase patrols in the area as a result, and that goes without saying even before this meeting tonight. I'll leave it at that in respect to the shooting. In relation to Mr. Barry there in Seminary Walk, again, you know, we're after taking notes of what you're saying. We'll hopefully try and increase the patrols around the Seminary Walk area. Yes, we've got calls in the last few days and weeks in relation to fireworks. It's been a bit sporadic and it hasn't been concentrated on one particular area, but we do react, and we can react on a daily basis. I meet with my sergeants and the guards every day, and my inspectors are doing the same, and we can adjust any of our plans on a daily basis depending on the needs of a particular area, day or night. So that's the way we work. But to anyone that's listening tonight and to any of the residents, is keep feeding in the issues, no matter how small they are, because we can react to them, and hopefully they won't get any bigger, you know. Yes, we're looking forward to the physical meetings again. I think maybe the novelty of the Zoom meetings is probably gone. The only benefit we saw from these meetings is that we had the questions beforehand, so we were able to give answers on the spot. Sometimes at the physical meetings we'll be given questions that we need a bit of time to give a proper answer and to give proper facts and figures. But other than that, I think we're all in favour of going back to physical meetings and having that personal contact. I think they're the issues that were covered with those speakers. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Adrian.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. And look, I agree. I think we're all hankering over some physical contact. But I mean, if the questions in advance would actually help with the physical meetings also, you know, we could continue that process. So we could try and get as many questions as possible in advance of the meeting. So it might make the meetings a bit more beneficial for everybody. So thank you. So over to you, Councillor Kenneth O'Flynn there now.
Thank you, Adrian. And again, to echo what my colleagues have said, and not to be blowing smoke, but I think that we will have to give credit where credit is due. And in particular this summer, I think the Garda Síochána came under fierce pressure from various reasons, via COVID, via everything else that was going on in the city. There was a lot of antisocial behaviour. And I have to say the response from on Garda Síochána was second to none. I want to thank you on behalf of my constituents, on behalf of myself as a citizen, what you're doing, and the difficulties that you find yourselves in as well. Because I know that talking to many of the guards on the beat and on the street, you know, it's tough. It's tough on you guys as well, and sometimes perhaps we don't see that as well, and how difficult it is with resources, and how difficult it is getting boots on the ground and being expected to be everywhere at all times, and I know how difficult that is for the Gardaí, and I think I think we must all recognise the tremendous work that the entire team is putting in, and the dedication from the team. Could I just add? I was contacted by residents in Farnree today, in particular in the Fairfield Road area, and I know the armed response was in there earlier this morning. But and I know Gardaí were there last night on the particular site that I'm referring to, as I'm sure you would probably know, Superintendent. But there does seem to be a combination of when the guards arrive and drive into the site, and once you drive out again, there seems to be dispersing of the groups, and back bigger than ever. I've just received a text again saying the group is back again and weaponizing. From hurleys up to golf clubs and everything else in between. So it is something that needs continuous attention. I'm not sure if the armed response needs to go back in there again tonight. Just in Blarney, Mark, as I like to call it, the Damien Boylan site, the one that Councillor Boylan secured there, the inch. And I have to give credit where credit is due to my neighbour, but I know Cork City Council were meant to erect the no trespassing sign, and I believe they were meant to fix the gate, but they haven't done that. So I think that's something for the City Council to get involved in as well, Adrian, to assist the Gardaí on that site, because it is council land now where we have people using scrambler bikes. could I ask again, Superintendent, and there has been some speed checks and some checks on the Glen Heights Road, but I would ask that we would continue with that. As you're probably aware, Cork City Council is going out to public consultation with speed ramps there on Glen Heights Road. We hope to have those installed probably early next year, is what we're being told. But I would ask that if we could have some more checkpoints there, just to send out the message to slow down on the road, because I am very fearful that a child will be killed there. And you know, it's not just in the evening; it's 10 o'clock in the morning. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's all times of the day when people are just using it. It's like a rally. Being honest with you, I'm deeply concerned about people in Blackpool, in particular those that are very, very worried, and the residents that have rang me on Sunday morning, in particular Madden's Buildings, Broad Lane, all that direction. And I was informed that there is certain individuals there, very well known to yourselves, that are active in antisocial behaviour, active in criminal activity, and I would ask for an increased presence there. And I know there is an ongoing investigation, so I'm not good. And the same in Pope's Hill. Could I just ask about our social media? And that's something that I brought up before. And you know, we have some people that are very engaged in their community, that log on to meetings like this, that watch them, that watch the council meetings, that, you know, that are very interested. But there's a lot of people out there as well that don't know. And I keep on saying that, don't know who their community guard is, don't know who their local councillor is, don't know who their TD is. And I just wonder, in conjunction with Cork City Council, because I think actually now, in fairness, the City Council, our own media is quite good here because we have a media officer employed for the last number of years now, and we're sending out the messages, tweeting, and social media and all that sort of stuff. But I do wonder, is there perhaps a social media platform that both City Council and Garda Síochána should be sharing together to get out the message of who your community guard is, what do you do in this situation? There's an awful lot of very practical information comes from the National Garda headquarters on Twitter and things like that, and a lot of us share it as public reps. But I wonder, is there a platform that could be used between both of us, City Council and Garda Síochána in Cork, to get out local messages, just to let people know who their local superintendent is, who their community guard is, and get that information out to them and get them engaging again, because I appreciate that probably there wasn't the level of engagement because of the months that were in it as well, being July and August, and that we're coming off the tail end of COVID, etc. And of course, there is social media and digital fatigue now at this stage with these type of meetings. But I want to re-engage with people, because it always amazes me how, when you go to, you know, you expect everybody to know what you know. And a lot of the time when you're out there in the community talking to people, they don't realise that there's a community guard. They don't realise that there's community forums. So I think it's important as well, in particular coming off the back end of COVID now, is to send out that message again. And I think it's something that City Council could maybe take on the mantle with as well, Adrian. And again, thank you very much for all your service. I really do appreciate it. And I know people are very appreciative of what you've done. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Flynn. And yeah, we'll take that matter, read the gate back in, and we'll try and get a response on that. Just with regards to the messaging piece, I suppose on Garda Síochána, you have your own comms team. So I suppose if something was to be done, it would possibly be a message that would be done with both comms teams in Cork City Council and on Garda Síochána. So, I mean, Declan, if you thought that might be something that would be beneficial to yourselves, then certainly we could maybe have a discussion about that and how it might work. So I noticed that Ger Maloney is actually back online. So Ger, if you want to ask a question, you might raise your hand and I'll bring you in when you're ready. In the meantime, Tom Coleman, you're next, and then I'll call on Councillor Ted Tynan and then Councillor McNugent. So Tom, if you have the floor there.
Thanks, Adrian. I'm living in Blarney Street, as you're well aware, is the longest street in Ireland, and it's the most gridlocked street in the city and county. I can vouch for. Last Monday, we invited the Northwest Ward councillors and Sergeant Brendan Kelly to a meeting, and at that meeting, it was decided that we had a roadmap now to alleviate that problem by making that street one way. And we're firm believers locally in having communication and cooperation. And the local Garda station in Grana really is a case in point. They're very helpful to us, and all they're interested in that we'd have the people that we represent a better quality of life. And in turn, we would be looking to the Cork City Council in this juncture to promote and support this venture for us, because the people in our area and the local councillors, needless to mention, and Gardaí, we want to give a better quality of life to our people, because we can have all this safety forums going, but we must also be seen to deliver in an hour of need. And this is a street, by the way, that was used to be for bringing the provisions into the butter market. That street has not widened 1 inch. So when we're talking about this street, as I say, the longest street in Ireland, and in this particular instance, we're looking for action. And secondly, the amount of work that our local guards do nearly came to tragedy last Friday night on the local newspaper here, highlighting an issue that was being dealt with by the Grana Garda station in relation to the misuse of drugs. It was disheartening, to say the least of it, really, that when we're trying to represent our people with our local councillors, needless to mention, and this was being looked after. And when we have a complaint, it doesn't necessarily mean that you just run down the street or a laneway to resolve this issue. This is by far a bigger operation, and it takes a lot of surveying really to capture these people, and they're not welcome in our area. And I would like to compliment Grana Garda Station really on the tremendous work that they're doing for our area. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tom. And I might just go to Councillor Ted Tynan there.
Thanks, Adrian. My apologies for arriving late at the meeting. We had a housing meeting which continued a little bit longer than planned, but I'll be very brief. There was on and off over the years issues with scramblers and these scrambler bikes rolling around certain areas of Mayfield, and I made contact with a senior Garda in Anglesey Street about a little over 4 weeks ago, and I'd just like to say a huge thanks to that person and whoever else he worked with, to the Gardaí. The scramblers have more or less disappeared now from the Mayfield area. There's been 1 or 2 sightings, but they've disappeared from the area, and not alone my own appreciation and thanks, but from people living in the area in a number of estates, housing estates up there, where when they heard the scramblers coming, they'd run outside to bring in their children from the green area where they play during the daytime. And fair play to the Garda. The Garda in Anglesey Street worked in the Mayfield area for a couple of years ago, and done great work there, and I'd like to thank him. I won't name him at this stage, but he may not want to be named, but huge thanks to that Garda and to others involved in sorting out the issue. Now, it may pop up again in the near future, but at least there's been 4 weeks of quietness there, and the people of the area are very appreciative of the efforts. Okay, thanks all.
Thanks, Councillor. So I might go to you, Councillor McNugent there.
Good morning. Apologies as well for being late. I was at the same meeting. Ted was at, and if I missed anything if anything was raised already, you can let me know. Just I think it was indicated that the meetings will come back again in person at some point in the near future, which would definitely be welcome. I know we've kind of a lower attendance tonight than we had at the last meeting, and maybe people didn't see what was on. And just echo Tom Coleman's comments there, and I was at that meeting, and as Sergeant Brendan Kelly was as well. So hopefully we'll have something that the City Council will trial in Blarney Street, and we'll go into that further at the local area committee meeting next week, and we'll be looking for the support of the guards with that. I'm sure that will be forthcoming as well, because it does need to be addressed. I don't know if the issue was raised already about fireworks. It's been an issue the last number of nights, I suppose, across the city. But my own area last night, quite loud, and probably, some people, it might be, they might take much notice to it. Others, it can be frightening for them, as we all know. Then torments dogs. It's they're a nuisance, really. So I know there has been some social media messaging about the dangers of them. So perhaps there could be more that, or the council can play its part there as well in that, in terms of fireworks. Also, to echo what Ted said in terms of scramblers, probably maybe with the nights drawing in, hopefully it might be less of an issue. Still a bit of an issue. I don't know, has anybody got any information on the call about the new Department of Justice scheme that was looking at providing funding for alternatives? And I think the guards are going to play a role in that as well. Maybe alternative areas for their use, or training, or trying to get young people off the public roads and the public green spaces. I think there was going to be a scheme coming through the Department of Justice there on that. And I think Councillor Flynn referenced already the couple of issues there in Blackpool, which is of concern to the community there in Blackpool, notably the incident there over the weekend. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Thanks very much. We're all good.
Thanks, Councillor Nugent. And look, the items of fireworks and scramblers were touched on, but look, I might ask Ger Maloney to come in there. Ger, you dropped off there a while ago, and then we'll go back to Garda Síochána. How are you?
How are you? No, I tell you, I've been asked in particular to bring up the speed of the traffic going, in particular from John O'Callaghan Park, the rate has been reduced to 30 kilometres, but from John O'Callaghan Park up to the Marwood Estate, the speed is unbelievable. In that area in particular, you have an awful lot of young people going into SARS. You have a lot of kids walking to school, both to St. Joseph's and into GCC, and the speed limit is unbelievable. People have suggested, is there any way we could get ramps, speed ramps, or some other way of slowing down the traffic? Yes, there is a speed limit of 30 kilometres, but there doesn't seem to be, I have never seen a road check there. I have never seen a speed trap there. So they've asked me to actually name that area in particular. They fear because the path goes missing from Marwood. There is no path from Marwood to Sarsfields Court, so kids have to walk on the road. They have to cross the road. So that's one thing. And the other thing I would love, actually, if Sergeant would let me know of the opening stations of the Glamire station, Garda station every week. I'd love to post it, because I'm sick of people saying they can't get through or it's never opened. I know that not to be true. I know it's opened. I drive by it all the time. But I think people in the area are of the impression that it's closed all the time. So I would love if he could update me, and I'll post it everywhere as regards to the opening times.
Thanks, Ger. And I suppose just to kind of answer those couple of people first, and then I know that Deputy Gould, you have your hand up. Could I just ask John Marr and Councillor O'Flynn and Councillor Boylan, your hands were up there. Is it another question, or is it an old hand, as we say?
No, my hand is down there, Adrian.
Okay.
Sorry about
Perfect.
that.
That's
Yeah,
great.
mine is
Thank
there
you.
as well. Sorry.
That's fine, no problem. Okay, so will I hand over to you, Martha, just maybe to respond to, I suppose, the items in relation to the McNugent and the LAC and the traffic and the one-way system?
Yeah, I
That
suppose
may be the
just
best route for that.
Yeah, just as Tom, as your reference to that, the meeting around Blarney Street, and kind of maybe a change to the directional flow of Blarney Street, just to check whether there would have been engagement with our roads and traffic team inside in City Hall at this point, because I'm just we'll say the query we had around Acres Road, for example, and I was saying that would all kind of be carried out with reference to CMATs and bus prioritization and all that. I just want to make sure that you're kind of making contact with you know, our roads colleagues as soon as possible on this so that they can guide you as to the best way forward on it. And maybe Councillor Nugent can enlighten me there. And if you need me to maybe signpost or provide you with the contact detail of the team in Cork City Council so that you can be kind of best equipped to progress that as the community desires.
Thanks, Martha. Yeah, it would be good to engage with the engineers at a very early stage so that, you know, the expectations of what could or can be done can actually be outlined early on in any process. So thanks for that. So I might hand over to Garda Síochána there. So we had Councillor O'Flynn and Councillor Tynan and Councillor Nugent's questions. And Ger Maloney.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Adrian. I'll just start there with Councillor O'Flynn's comments and questions. Just again, thanks for the kind words initially, and I suppose in relation to Fairfield Road, the issue there, and we're well aware of it, and I think we're down there as we speak. The issue there is again in relation to land ownership. We're trying to resolve it, but I don't think we on Garda Síochána have the solution to that. But I know the local sergeants. We're trying to make inroads into relation to the land ownership there, and it's a historical issue. But we're trying, and as I say, we are down there very frequently. We're aware of the issues. We're dealing with a lot of the residents down there on a frequent basis, and we understand their fears and concerns in relation to areas like Madden's buildings and Cork. In relation to the incident the other night, again, we've increased our presence down there since that. We're mindful of that straight away Sunday morning. Again, the fears and concerns from tonight meetings will feed into that again going forward, and the patrols and the particularly foot patrols are going to increase in those areas. I'm all in favour of sharing social media platforms with the City Council. I think that possibly something that have to be done through the central JPC, that will have to be as opposed to just a north side thing or a south side thing. So it's possibly something that we could bring up at the central JPC to do it on a citywide basis. But certainly I'm all in favour of it, and there's no difficulty with publishing the names of the Gardaí that are responsible for particular areas out there locally anyway. So just moving on there to Mr. Tom Coleman, and again the kind words in relation to the issues in Blarney Street, and again we're aware of the issues in relation to the misuse of drugs, and we're constantly working with people in the background, not in these type of meetings, but we are working with people in relation to progressing investigations in relation to the Misuse of Drugs Act, and that's ongoing. That's happening every day of the week on the north side. There's people before the court every day of the week in relation to drug investigations. So that is constant, and we work, the uniform members here on the north side, working very closely with the plainclothes people in the drugs units and the crime units. So that will continue. Just moving on to Mr. Tynan in relation to the scramblers, and again it's heartening to hear that there was a successful response to that issue. We're mindful that can return in a moment's notice. And again, we're asking that you keep telling us if these issues are coming in, keep phoning in, keep telling us what's going on. You know, we will respond, and again through these meetings. And from what I'm taking from all I'm hearing tonight is that there's good local relationships between elected representatives and in particular the sergeants in each of the stations, and that needs to continue on a daily basis. For small issues, we get in ahead of it and try and stop them becoming big issues. And I'm talking to my sergeants every day, my inspectors are talking to the sergeants every day, and we're feeding in. We adapt our policing on the north side on a daily basis. It's not something we kind of look at once a month. It happens every day. Again, to Councillor Nugent in relation to the fire, we touched on it earlier in relation to the calls we've got. But again, keep feeding those in, and to your constituents to tell them to keep phoning us, and give us as much as they can over the phone there and then while it's happening, as opposed to telling us a day later, you know, it's come and gone at that stage, you know. I'm not aware of any progress in relation to the Department of Justice scheme. I'm aware of it, and we've been feeding into it, but it's something I can certainly check out for the next meeting, or the Sergeant Brendan Kelly can talk to you after the meeting or in the coming days in relation to any progress on that side of things. in relation to the issues in Glanmire from Ger Maloney. Again, the areas you spoke about, we're taking them, we're writing them down as you're talking, and they will be fed in to policing down in Glanmire. You can take that as granted. Hours at the station, as I say, we will be publishing possibly from the start of November. We just want to put a system in place that whatever hours we say we're going to open, we're going to honour, and we don't want to go back on that. So we have to put a system in place that we can honour the hours that we're going to publish. And I don't want to have to close the station for some unforeseen event after telling people that it's going to be open. So I just want to be put on a sure footing before we do that. But I'm hoping the start of November we'll have that in place. Is that okay? I think they're the issues so far, Adrian.
Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate
that. So, Deputy Gould, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, good. Listen, can you hear me? Like other people, apologies, I was late. I was inside the chamber. I was speaking in relation to housing. And I suppose it ties into some of the points that other people have mentioned.
Sorry,
here
Deputy
earlier.
Gould, I just want to ask if anybody's not on mute, could they go on mute, because there's a bit of feedback there. So sorry about that. Go ahead, please.
No problem. Is that better? Yeah, it's just a few issues, and I know some have been touched on already, and apologies for being late, but I think Tom Cohen has made a point about Blarney Street. There's been absolute chaos down there because of the work that was going on Sunday as well, with the new pipes, water pipes and drainage pipes that were being put in. And to be honest, there's serious questions why the council, why there wasn't an immediate plan put in place, because there was actually people got out of cars and fought on the street because the chaos was so bad down there for the last 3 weeks. It's unbelievable. Now, Sunday as well has reopened a bit and it's taken away some of the pressure, but there certainly has to be, I'm going to meetings for 10 or 15 years about Blarney Street. The council has to do something now. Also in relation to articulated trucks, buses going down Bakers Hill and going down Blarney Street from the top end by the crucifixion, they're driving down and getting caught. That's still happening to this day. We need better signage, and you need the signage earlier on Cathedral Road and higher up on Blarney Road, because there's not a week goes by where there's not a truck or something being backed up by residents. Just the whole issue with the scramblers, that's an ongoing problem, and I was wondering, I think Mick Nugent asked for an update. I'd love to see the update, because I know the Minister announced it in the Dáil about a unit to deal with that. And also I'm getting regular contacts now from people in relation to wild horses or loose horses and the mistreatment of horses. I've discussed that in previous meetings. I think that's something that is there more training required for Gardaí. Like that whole issue of people on sulky racers, horses in pitches and fields. Like no horse should be on the field now unless it's designated for equine use. And that's the European law that came in, I think, in 2018. Just a few other things. First of all, I want to compliment the council on the speed signs that went up around a number of areas. They're great to see. It really makes a difference. So well done to the council for that. Also, the fireworks that Mick Nugent mentioned. I was up in people's houses Saturday and Sunday evening. It's for older people, it's a big issue. I'm not sure what the guards, I know that you had a plan to tackle it, but like there's fireworks everywhere now at the moment, and it's not just in the north side, it's right across the city. And I suppose I want to also thank Ron Gardaí and John Dwyer in particular, and the community guards. They've done a great initiative now where they're going out to meet with clubs, meet with young people in their clubs, which is something Mick O'Loughlin, when he was superintendent to Groan, did. I think that's an initiative that should be rolled out right across the city. And what it does is it makes Gardaí community guards that all the kids in the area know them. It's a great, and what happens then is when kids get into trouble, the guard isn't a person to be afraid of. A guard can be a friendly face as well. So to John and what they're trying to do in Groan, I think that's a great initiative. But I have serious concerns about the community Gardaí number who are on the ground, because looking back to 2010 or 12, we've not got back to those levels. So I think you should be pushing more. And the last point I would make then was a couple of years ago I put forward a solution that maybe once a week the Gardaí, the City Council, the Fire Brigade, TUSLA, schools, community groups would come together to look at areas where there's high antisocial behaviour, because we see antisocial behaviour actually moves across the city. When the guards go strong in one area, it goes to another. I think that's what we need to tackle, and we need to identify the children and the young people who cause most of the problems, because do we need to get TUS involved? Do we need to get schools involved? Do the Gardaí liaison need to get involved? I think that's what we can work on. And to be honest, there's loads of great work being done by different groups in the city. I think if we could just tie them together. So listen, I know there's a lot of work being done. I appreciate it. I thank you. And if there's any help I can give you up here to support you, I'll do everything I can. Good morning.
Thanks, Deputy. So I might hand over there to Mark. Do you want to cover off, I suppose, Blarney Street? We've kind of, I suppose, we've had a discussion about that with regards to maybe a one-way system. And I know that Martha has already reached out to the meetings administrator in the Northwest LAC. So that'll be flagged for the next meeting. So I presume, Deputy Gould, that comes in under your queries in relation to Baker's Hill and Blarney Street together. So the scramblers, Mark, do you just want to cover them off again? We'd mentioned them earlier.
Excuse me.
Yeah, thanks, and as we probably touched on it earlier in relation to the scramblers, but I think we've had a lot of success in around the National Boreen area, and certainly the volume of calls we're getting 6 months ago is way down now in relation to that particular area. And again, as Brendan Kelly addressed the meeting earlier in relation to Spriggs Road and in the Shannon Road and the 52 steps, we're constantly reacting to calls that come in from down there. It's very sporadic, and we're appealing to people, if they see, as they see it, to phone us and give us as much information as fresh as possible, and we will react to it. In relation to going into the GA clubs and the boxing clubs and other sporting organisations, that has restarted now, and as I think I touched on it earlier in the meeting, and it's something we're driving on all across the north side. It won't just be in Granabraw or even St. Vincent's. We'll spread it to all the clubs, and you know, it's something that pays huge dividends for everyone that's involved, not just the Gardaí, and that will continue. In relation to maybe the numbers of Gardaí, absolutely. There's no superintendent who will refuse extra manpower, and I'm certainly not going to change that. We have got a lot of probationers into the city. We've got a lot onto the north side. Unfortunately, there's been retirements and people have moved on as well. I'm constantly fighting for people, and that will continue. As I said, maybe at the Deputy Gould, you mightn't have picked it up at the start of the meeting. I have 1 sergeant and 13 community guards at the moment on the north, and I have committed them with probationers that have come in the recent past to particular areas, for instance, Kinvara and Spriggs Road and Knocknaheeny. Unfortunately, they're not full-time in those areas, but they're going in there as much as they can. In relation to the anti-social areas and having joined, like we, as you say, we do react to particular areas, and unfortunately, in some areas, the problem can move on. But we do react to that, I would say, on a daily basis, because I'm talking to the sergeants here daily, and if there's particular issues on the night time, we will adopt our plans accordingly. But as for other agencies coming on board, I think this forum here tonight is one of those where we're talking to each other, and I certainly welcome any progress on that, you know. I think that covers the points you're making, Deputy.
Thanks, Mark. Do you just want to touch on the fireworks? I think you'd said that the fireworks were actually down this year than they were last year.
Well, what I was saying earlier is we have got a lot of calls in recent days in relation to them. We haven't made detections in relation to them, as in people selling them. I'm talking about, because it's primarily children that are using them and that, and we're appealing to people to phone us. If it's happening, phone us there and then. We will react to it, we will go to it, and I'll certainly be talking to my colleagues tomorrow in relation to maybe establishing the source of these, where they're coming from, where they're being sold, how they're being getting down into the various parts of the city, and we'll continue that right up to Halloween.
And look, we can have a look at our community newsletter as well, and maybe push the messaging out through that. And we'll use whatever channels we have. Martha, do you just want to comment on the wild horses? Maybe the fact that the TIG is back up and running. So.
Yeah, so the Traveller Interagency Group has been back running and active for, I suppose, the guts of 12 months now. And one of the subgroups which was born out of that is the Traveller Equine. Gosh, it's had a few iterations of its name, but we call it the Horse Project colloquially. And certainly it's one of the issues that we've been liaising with colleagues in housing around the company to whom that work is contracted and how we look at that issue, because we're aware of there's actually a huge volume of horses primarily across the north side, and as Deputy Gould referred to, it is a huge animal welfare risk. So that is in hand. It's a complex issue, but it's something that has been addressed at an interagency level, which I think, given the nature of the challenge, is necessary.
Thanks, Martha. And just Deputy Gould, with regards to the group coming together across the city, I mean, I think Mark is right that we do need to deal with it at this local level, but just to bear in mind that the Community Response Forum, which has 42 organisations and agencies across the city, that will continue on in Cork City. And I suppose what we're looking at the moment is a plan for recovery. And certainly, you know, we could look at, I suppose, interventions that might support areas where there is antisocial behaviour. So we'll certainly bear that in mind. So, Councillor Tony Fitzgerald, you have your hand up there.
Thanks, Adrian. Sorry, apologies for being late. I was chairing the housing meeting there of the SPC earlier on, and I missed the start of the meeting. Apologies. Just to pick up on the conversation, I just want to put on record my appreciation to the Garda Síochána under leadership of Superintendent Declan O'Sullivan in terms of the scramblers. It's been something that I've been dealing with for many, many years. It was auto cars was the first issue. Now we have the scramblers. And in fairness, I think the number of calls have gone down dramatically. I know every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I would have been getting calls, and I think they've decreased dramatically. We still have an issue out around the Killeens area, but I think that's down to the work of the Garda Síochána. And you know, with further legislation coming on board, I think we can do lots of work there. But I think the message is to go to the parents not to be buying these vehicles for their children. And coming up to the Christmas period, that probably message needs to get out as well. But certainly that issue has dramatically decreased in recent times. Again, I know Blarney has been touched on, and we had a meeting the other morning there, and thanks to everybody who has made submissions and have made a contribution to that issue. And I think Sergeant Brendan Kelly gave very good insights to where the Gardaí are coming from in relation to that issue. But the residents on Blarney Street are totally frustrated. I've been down there last week and the week before with engineers looking at it, and council still hasn't grasped the nettle on this issue. Residents and sections of Blarney have come up with very practical solutions to the problem. Not all areas, not everybody will agree on one system, but there are very simple practical solutions on different sections. And I am hoping that those requests will be listened to with the traffic division, and it has to be dealt with. We have a huge increase now of traffic coming through the northwest, which is great in one sense, because with the increase in traffic coming in from Tower and Kerry Pike, you know, it's filtering its way to the roads coming in. And I welcome the sign in relation to the heavy goods vehicle coming down on Granabra Road. But again, and I've spoken to David Joyce on this, the sign needs to be up by the Church of the Ascension. It needs to be up there, because that the heavy good vehicles coming down, it's too late when they turn right down onto Granabra Road. You know, that needs to be done. And you know, it's a pardon the pun, it's a bit of swings and roundabouts in one sense, like where how do you get it right? And in fairness to the residents of Sunday as well, they've been great during the Irish Water works there. There's an issue now with resurfacing that road, and again, I hope that Irish Water and the City Council can come together to make sure that the roads can be resurfaced following the works. And my last point would be in support of An Garda Síochána in terms of what they've been doing. I think people should remember that I think the Grana Braher district in particular, when I'm saying that because it's in my own area, has been to the fore nationally in models of best practice in terms of crime prevention. Tommy, don't use that now on the dial in the next half an hour for that quote. But anyway, it has been, and we've done huge work. We've done huge work in relation to crime prevention down through the years, and I think we need to raise the bar in terms of delivering that as much as we can, looking at how our youth organisations are working, how the Garda Youth Diversion Project is delivering it on the ground. And I'm sorry to say that the current operation of an absence of a superintendent in the Garda station and the widespread of community Gardaí across the city is not working. And I don't say that lightly. And people would know my record in terms of this area, but it's not working. And I see it on the ground. I see the frustration of Gardaí on the ground. And it's an internal functional decision of An Garda Síochána, and I think a message needs to go back. I've raised it at the last GAPC, and compliments and best wishes to Chief Superintendent Barry McCollan, who is retired, and it's great to see a Northside man coming on back into the city, Tom Myers from Grana Braher and Blarney Road. But it is definitely not working. That's not a criticism of the Garda Síochána. It's a criticism of the system. And I can't, for the life of me, see why community Gardaí are on at 1, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I honestly cannot. That's not what we set it up for. And you know, the body system, you know, has weaknesses in that. So I look for, you know, I look forward to meeting with Declan again on it and see how this can be done. It's not within the gift of the Gardaí here in Cork. It's a national issue, but certainly from my experience anyway, and I flagged this well before it was introduced, I think it needs to be revisited, and I'll certainly be making my representations on it in terms of how it's working moving into the future. So sorry again, I was late coming in and I missed the presentation, but well done to everybody and to the partnerships that are working well and keeping our community safe. Good.
Thanks, Councillor Fitzgerald. And could I ask maybe after the meeting, would you ever share the name of the engineers that actually went up and met with you there, just so that we're not running around the houses, so we'll go directly to the source, wherever you were dealing with, so that would be useful.
I will.
Thank you.
I will enter. I'll forward on to there later.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Councillor John Sheehan, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Chair. And my apologies for being late. I was at another meeting, so I'll be very, very brief. I won't repeat what others have said. But just to, I suppose, highlight a couple of points. One, in terms of the antisocial behaviour, particularly around Seminary Walk and some of Blackpool, I'd like to compliment the guards. I've noticed a significant visible increase in the presence over the last week, and I'd like to compliment them for the work that they're doing. It's a challenging work. Particularly Brendan in Grana Braher and Mark also in Blarney. There's, I suppose, an ongoing issue with drug dealing around the Blackpool village area, and that flares up and then moves and comes back and flares up, and I know it happens in other parts of the city as well. And likewise, the other issue is regarding illegal dumping. That is an ongoing scourge in the Blackpool area, and there's a number, I suppose, of semi-known individuals who seem to persist in this behaviour. It settled down when one of them was incarcerated for a while and then flared up again, and it's very frustrating for many of the community in the community association who do such good work. With regard to the traffic in Blarney Street, I'd echo what Councillor Fitzgerald has said, and we need to seriously look at a traffic management issue in that whole area, the Sunday as well, Blarney Street area, because as the volume of traffic is just getting worse, it's just getting unsustainable. It's beyond unsustainable at the moment. Gurmeet Mahaka, Chair, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. So I suppose just to Councillor Fitzgerald's point there with regards to the heavy vehicle signage, we'll take that message back to the Director of Services there. And also your reference to the resurfacing of the road when the waterworks are complete. Mark, do you want to come in there on the drug dealing? And maybe Martha, you might say something on the illegal dumping. That would be an upside of those.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. I'll just go in the order there. Councillor Fitzgerald there, just in relation to, and again for his kind words in relation to the issue of the scramblers, and I know he's put a lot of effort into that as well, and so have the Gardaí here as well, and we continue to do that going forward. In relation to the youth version issues, and again I should have said that the youth awards are on again this year in the Rochestown Park Hotel in November, and again I think it's gone out there through the Community Gardaí for nomination. So again, if any of you are aware of particular young people in your areas that are doing good work in the community, you know, please feed that into us, because there is the youth awards next month, and we're anxious to recognise those people that are doing work in the community, and there are a lot of great young people out there doing that. In relation to the new operating model, and I know Councillor Fitzgerald is aware that I didn't design it and he didn't design it, but there has been, I think, some benefits. But look, I'll probably discuss it in more detail with Councillor Fitzgerald, and certainly the losing of Ballincollig to the Northside policing has been a huge advantage for the Northside, because heretofore the Granabraher Gardaí were being pulled over to Ballincollig to collect prisoners, and they're gone to the Northside for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, up to an hour to bring prisoners from Ballincollig back to Granabraher. Those prisoners from Ballincollig, anyone that's arrested in Ballincollig now goes to Toker, which makes a lot more sense in my book. But there are other issues, and we have got extra transport, we have got extra community policing, albeit the superintendent was lost in Granabraher. There was downsides to it as well, but look, I'll discuss them with Councillor Fitzgerald. In relation to Councillor Sheehan's issues around Semery Walk, we had touched on them there earlier with Mr. David Barry, who was also on the call. And again, we're reacting to those issues, and we're very conscious of the recent shooting there, and we will be increasing the high-vis patrols in those areas, not only as a result of this meeting, but any incidents that do happen. The drug dealing, again, it is a constant issue in relation to, and we've had success down there in Blackpool, and as you rightly say, it moves problems to another area. We have a city centre policing unit, which is based out of the Bridewell, but they do, and I have contributed manpower to that, and they do come into Blackpool, McCurtain Street, Shandon Street, North Mall, all around the distillery area there, the North Mall as well. So that unit are working on the ground, albeit they're based out of the Bridewell. They do contribute to the north side as well, and I've contributed to that. In relation to the illegal dumping, Sergeant Murphy touched on it earlier, we have done joint operations with the City Council in the recent past. Some of them haven't come before the courts yet, but they will be coming before the courts, and we'll continue to work with the City Council in any way they want us to any assistance they required in relation to illegal dumping. I think they're the issues that were raised. Adrian.
Thanks, Mark. So there's still 4 hands up: Ger Maloney, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Nugent. So I presume they're kind of old hands. They've expired.
Mine's new hand there.
Okay, Councillor Nugent, come in. Yeah, go ahead.
Just very briefly there, just to follow Thomas's point there about the interagency kind of work we did. In Gran, we had, I think it was pioneered by Con Cadigan. Brian O'Donovan been there as well. The Northside Drug and Alcohol Initiative. It probably fell, I suppose, with COVID, of course. You know, we used to meet every 3 months there, and you'd have the guards, the HSC, the drug and alcohol projects, the councillors, youth workers, traveller visibility group reps. It'd only be for an hour and a half every 3 months, but it was very useful. you know, the guards would give reports on, and you're in committee as well, but you would get some information on, you know, reports and seizures, and you could share experiences and information and, you know, issues, say, like Farnry or Redemption Road, things like that could come up and you could discuss it there. Barry McPolan then and Brendan Kelly would have, you know, laterally then would have been chairing those meetings then as well, like, you know, so I think it was seen as a successful model because I know Mayfield started it then as well, and I think Toker started it. But again, those meetings probably fell by the wayside with the COVID coming in and that. So it might be something for the new year again to look at putting those meetings together. And I think you would have that sort of, you know, model that Thomas was talking about there as well. You know, it might be, I think it would be very useful. Cheers.
Thanks, Councillor Nugent. Martha, you have your hand up there. Do you want to?
Yeah, I suppose just to follow on what Councillor Nugent was saying there, and probably echoes, Adrian, maybe something of what myself and yourself spoke to Superintendent Colm O'Sullivan about, was maybe taking this opportunity now that maybe hopefully we're moving on to a new phase of being able to get back together and so on, but we probably do need to revisit those structures that kind of exist underneath the JPC, and I know that district meeting that Councillor Nugent is referring to, I used to attend that in Toker, and I'd agree it actually was a really good way of kind of filtering out some of the issues that could be dealt with locally, and maybe escalating other issues that needed to be brought to the fore at the JPC level, and kind of as well just involve community representatives, which obviously is a really important part of this piece. So I suppose I would hope that Cork City Council, Superintendent O'Sullivan, who's here tonight, Colm O'Sullivan and John Deasy, along with the new Chief Superintendent, will be able to, and with the chair of our JPC, can look at how the communities are best served in those instances.
Thanks, Martha. Yeah, we'll progress that, and I think you're right. I think it's timely that we'd look at the systems that are in place. Deputy Gould, you have your hand up there again.
Yeah, just very briefly, there's not often myself and Tony Fisher would agree on matters, but to be fair to Tony, in relation to the reconfiguration of the Gardaí in the north side, that was certainly losing the superintendent in Groan was a huge thing. The other thing there, Declan, you said that there was one sergeant on 13. I remember attending one of these meetings maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and the proposal at the time was 1 sergeant and 20 community guards. And like when you look, I don't think Glanmire was in at the time, and Tor and Blarney weren't in the time. So I'm only making the suggestion, when you see areas as huge as Glanmire and Tor and Blarney, along with the rest of the north side, and you're looking at 1 sergeant and 13 community guards, that's not enough to get us where we need to get and do the work. And I'd say up in Dublin as well as locally, the one recognition fact is everyone sees politicians and officials is the value of the community guards. So I know that's not your call. We'll keep applying pressure here, and I know all the councillors from all parties, and none will do the same. But 1 in 13 isn't enough for you to do the brilliant work that needs to be done.
Thanks, Deputy Gould. So, on Garda Síochána, do you want to come back on anything there?
Yeah, just briefly, Adrian. Yeah, just I suppose to Councillor Nugent there first. Just we'd be fully supportive of going back to those meetings. I said at the start of the meeting there that we since September we've gone back into the schools, we've gone back into the face-to-face stuff. The GA clubs, the boxing clubs, and certainly those meetings need to start back again. But and I've also said it during the meeting, you know, the local issues, the small. I'm hearing tonight that all the councillors and the deputies on this call all know the local sergeants, the local stations, and those one-on-one relationships should keep going on a daily basis with the small issues, the emails, the phone calls, without having to wait for 3 months for the next meeting. And I think that's what I'm hearing tonight, that communication is going on. It's a two-way street, and that's happening all the time, every week. I get to hear all this stuff. My sergeants are talking to me every day, and that needs to continue. I absolutely, just in relation to Deputy Gould, absolutely, I'm fighting for people here every day of the week. So are my counterparts on the south side and Toker. We're all looking for extra bodies, as many bodies as I get. I keep them all busy, and if I can get more community Gardaí, I'll certainly use them, and there's plenty of work out there, I can assure you that, and I know you know that as well. So absolutely, the more I get, the more I'll use, and I support your efforts in that. So thanks again for that.
Thanks, Declan.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any other questions. There's a few hands up there. Ger Maloney, are you okay? You didn't want to ask one? That's fine. And Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Nugent, Deputy Gould, and John Sheehan, you're all okay? Perfect. Okay. So
yeah.
it's
just to say to Adrian, just to say there's 5 fireworks going off up here now while I'm at this meeting.
Okay. Reported live. Cloncar the Chicana. So, thanks for that, Councillor Fitzgerald. So, Martha, did you want to come in there? Is that an old hand? Okay, perfect. So look, I suppose it just leaves it to me now to thank you all for participating this evening. We'll take back the issues that were raised, and as usual, we'll share the notes of the minutes with everybody. I suppose we're hearing loud and clear that there's a real appetite to go back to those physical meetings, and I think we need to look at the structures and how we engage with people on the ground. I think one thing that we might be on agreement on as well is that while we might go back to the physical meetings, trying to capture the questions in advance might be useful, and we might continue to do that. So we might keep that piece from the COVID learnings. So I just want to say thank you all for being here today, and especially to Garda Síochána and for the team and the very detailed reports. So thank you, Declan. So good night, everyone.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian. Thank you.